Hello, I'm your host, Giselle Gamby, and this is the Intuitive Pull Podcast, where together we'll embrace the plans we did not make yet, unfold businesses and lives that are so much greater in wealth in all ways than any business or life plan could ever achieve. My wish is that you make intuition your most trusted advisor. So buckle up, get present, and let's go. Hello, Intuitive Pull listeners, and welcome to any new listeners today. It's Monday, the 10th of October, and I'm finally back from my European travels, particularly with our retreat in Croatia, which was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And this morning I was appreciating what happened on retreat. I went through everybody's process and I wrote down just for myself what the transformation was, what the experience was for themselves, and what the results have been as a consequence of that. And then I felt pulled to look at the themes, pull out the themes that were in common across people's experiences and the results that have happened. And I was then pulled to create this episode for a few reasons, in fact. One of them is one of the participants has said, and I just need to say that everybody that was there was they were just the most perfect people. Shari, Elle, and I, the facilitators, had great intention around the most perfect people would be there, and so it was. And there's been a lot of conversation since retreat in a messenger group and a signal group, because there's so much connection. There was so much connection that was created and genuine love for each other. And so there's been a lot of sharing about what's been unfolding. And one of the guys said, it's really hard to describe what happened and what I've come out with from the retreat. It's really hard to put into words. And I understand that. The inner transformation journey is sometimes difficult to put into words and difficult to understand unless you're actually there. Having said that, when I pulled out the common denominators of what I saw happen on retreat in Croatia, I thought, well, I have put some words to what happened, and I felt to record this episode, number one, for the people who were there on retreat, for them to be able to appreciate even more what happened, perhaps to even put words to their experiences, and also mostly to continue amplifying their experiences. So those who were there in Croatia, I would love for you to listen to this episode to help you continue to amplify for the purposes of creating even more momentum than what has happened. Because we're infinite and life is infinite and the process will continue to unfold. In fact, it did for me today when I saw something that I didn't see up until I made a few connections, which is really, really cool. The other reason why I wanted to record this episode is for those who I'm currently coaching, and Shari is also currently coaching, who didn't come to Croatia. I really want you guys to be in the vibe of Croatia. I know that because you weren't there does not mean that you did not have the experience of Croatia. You see, we're all energetically connected, and my intention and Shari's intention was that for those who are not physically with us in Croatia, that we were in service to, that they would still get the benefit. Of course, albeit not in the most luxurious, incredible, rich way that we had and fun way that we had in Croatia together, but still get the benefits of the experience because we are energetically connected. So I'm putting words to the experience so that you can perhaps appreciate, hey, I also noted that for myself, or, oh, that's a really wonderful way of encapsulating what's been happening for me. So that's the second reason. The third reason I'm creating this episode is because in 3 weeks' time, I'll be facilitating another retreat in Kenya on the 1st to the 13th of November with my other very dear friend and peer, Michelle Richmond. And so it's pretty cool to be able to share in a contextual way what happened for those who are going to Kenya, because why not continue to, this is really weird phrasing that I'm about to use, continue to start the retreat in Kenya now. The reason why I just use those words, they're not words that are a mistake, they're actually words that are accurate, is because when someone decides to commit to something like an overseas retreat, the process actually begins the moment that they've committed. They don't even need to be on the land in Kenya or Croatia for process to begin. Process begins the moment that they say yes. That's the voluminous generosity, again, that we hold in the intentionality of these retreats. And so may what I'm about to share about what happened in Croatia continue to start those who are going to Kenya. Continue to start your process. Let your process be amplified through this sharing. And fourthly, for those who are neither going to Kenya or didn't go to Croatia, I would love for you to know what's possible when you come on retreat, especially when you come on retreat overseas. To come on retreat overseas is, with my hand on heart, one of the biggest life-changing decisions that you can make. You will only know that to be true once you've committed and said yes and have had the experience. But I'm offering, by way of this episode, a paradigm-shifting reality that is a life-changing decision when you say yes to coming on retreat. That may inspire you to, the last minute, pack your bags and book in to Kenya. We still have one spot available. Or it might inspire you to come next year. And it may inspire you regardless of coming. And I hope that it really does. So I, of course, am not going to be speaking to individual people's experiences. I may interview some of the people, having said that. What I am going to do is speak to the themes, and I'm going to ask you to be really present on this episode, that when you listen to the themes, that there's a certain level of integration or application that you can give to these themes in order for these themes to have relevance to you, in order for these themes to feed you and nourish you and catalyze you and catalyze intuition, catalyze the way you move, catalyze the way you show up, and catalyze intuitive action. So let's give this a go. So this is in no particular order. It's not like the first theme is what firstly happened on retreat. This is an encapsulation of everyone's process that I've distilled into themes. So the first theme is that we experienced a lot of freedom. I'm talking not just momentary freedom, but I'm talking about lifelong freedom from things that remained in the shadows, things that had not been expressed or not fully expressed or not fully honest with, that resulted in grief and shame. And this didn't happen just for one person, it happened for many people. The ability to have the freedom to be vulnerable and to express these fragilities that had not been fully expressed, that had been remaining in the shadows, was an experience that it was an honor to be witness to, that it was an honor to hold and to observe, and then a great, great privilege and joy to see how once the grief and shame had been fully expressed, how that then transformed into something else. And it transformed into leadership. The leadership that it transformed into was so clear. This is point 2, was so clear. This is a big word that was said many times on retreat. And interesting, I've had a couple of sessions today, and those words, this word, I should say, popped up very strongly with 2 people who weren't in Croatia with us. And this is the word conviction. There was so much leadership, clarity of leadership, that was the consequence of fully acknowledging and expressing grief and shame, that the conviction that was present was pretty extraordinary. And I remember somebody actually saying, this conviction for me is like, I actually don't have a choice. Like, it just is where she's going in her leadership, in what she is called to lead, in the impact that she's here to make. So much conviction. And speaking of conviction, here are another couple of points. There was some pretty powerful expressions that were spoken throughout the retreat. One of them was that in their leadership, they had conviction around allowing people to see that their life matters as much as anybody else's. There was a conversation around female suicide, and there's an expression or a response that people have. And I have to say, I'll put my hand up and say, I've had this thought. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I've had this thought too. Being a mum, and the thought is, and the things that people say is, how could they do that to their children? When we were speaking about this, it's because they really don't believe that their life matters as much as everybody else's. So there was huge conviction in leadership around doing what they need to do in order for people to know that their lives matter as much as anybody else's. Some other wording that just is bloody hot around conviction around leadership is somebody said that they really give a fuck, that they really give a fuck about things, in particular around making sure that people know that their lives matter as much as anybody else's. And this lady is a marketer, and she said, I give a fuck, and I want to work with people who give a fuck, and let's give a fuck together. And I invited her to go and change her LinkedIn profile, which she did. So we were a group of people, absolutely, in Croatia, who all give a fuck, and we were giving a fuck together. And you do that, and miracles happen. Another theme around that happened, and this is going to be a bit of a difficult one to explain. I don't really know how to explain this without explaining the experience, which I don't want to do, is that there was an increased capacity in a few people around their multidimensional nature, and in becoming connected to or becoming one with their multidimensional nature, they found a capability, if you like, of such depth and such infinite power to bring or call people home. One of the people who was on retreat is someone who works with troubled teens. And this capacity that is beyond the rational mind, way beyond the rational mind, that he expressed, you can't make it up. You just can't make it up. It was so part of who he is. The goosebumps and the chills and the shivers, and it's beyond, as I said, it's beyond the rational mind. It totally speaks and resonates at the level of beingness, and it's so much more powerful than words. There were a few people who expressed themselves, expressed their leadership in this multidimensional way, and I know that those experiences that I observed will be experiences that I'll remember for the rest of my life. So that was pretty beyond, I can say. We also talked about clarity and ownership of our gifts. You know, people talked about the gift of truth, the gift of intuition, for example. Another theme around this retreat was that, and I'm going to share something about my process here. So there was a moment where I had the intuition to say to somebody who's kind of like a little bit more left-brained, or was, no longer is. And I said to her, you know, I think it would be really valuable for you to work with Shari, you know, post-retreat, to coach with Shari, because Shari is a non-violent communication. She's the grande dame of that in Australia. And there is a lot of structure in that methodology. I said, I think it'd be really great working with her because she has structure. And I walked away from that day a few days later, caught myself and realized that I just talked bullshit, not about Shari, but about me, in the implication that I don't have structure. I work with structure, and the structure that I work with, which was the structure that held the retreat, is the power of personal responsibility, cause and effect, presence, intuition, being in complete trust and faith that there is a divine architecture that's way beyond any architecture or plan that I could ever make. The decision to surrender and let go of control and be guided and moved by that divine architecture. And I have to say, because we chose for the most perfect people to be on this retreat, I have to say that the divine architecture of this retreat was mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. I don't believe that I have seen it as exquisite and as powerful and as extraordinary as I saw it on this retreat. And so that is the structure that I work with, and that is the structure that this retreat was held on, in addition to the structures that Shari was founding our process on. And so what I've taken away from this retreat, people have been asking me, what's new? What new arrived for you, Giselle, that was catalyzed for you? What's new? And I was like, I don't think there's anything new. What there is there's a deeper seeing and appreciation of the structure that I work with, that I've always worked with. The only thing is it looks formless. And yet this structure that is formless absolutely and exquisitely informs, changes, recreates, and creates new matter. Yes, so energy informs, changes, and creates matter. All of these structures are energetic. Personal responsibility, the ability to go to a place of cause and effect, presence, intuition, following the intuitive pull over and over and over again, being in complete faith and trust and out of control and in movement with the divine architecture of the retreat. This was probably my biggest takeaway that I am now really deeply appreciating because I can see it without a shadow of a doubt. The other thing that happened on retreat is that I was pulled to facilitate retreats overseas since 2014. And there's a design, a specific design, or there's not just a design, there are several specific designs to this decision of facilitating retreats overseas. One of the designs that is embedded in an overseas retreat is the decision to know that we're worthy of giving ourselves these rich, luscious experiences. And that decision, that one decision to say yes, is not only just for that retreat. And I'll just say one example here. Somebody who I've got shivers going down my legs as I'm about to say this. Somebody who gave themselves this experience, and also her husband. Her husband didn't do the retreat, but he came for the trip, if you like, it was a holiday for him. She said to me, this is a once in a lifetime trip. This was before going. This was after she said yes. And I said, it might not be a once in a lifetime trip. That decision to give themselves this has created a new paradigm for them. And guess what's happening? They're planning their next European adventure next year. Because they know what is possible when they make themselves worthy of something that they're called by. We grow. We grow in what we give ourselves. And what we give ourselves that once felt like something that they could never have done, something so out of this world that now becomes part of their world, no longer feels so out of this world. It just becomes natural to them. And this, I predict, will be the case for this amazing, amazing couple. So do you see the design of saying yes to an overseas retreat? It's a different quality of decision to one that doesn't require that amount of commitment in lots of ways, including time and including money. So I'm super grateful that I have designed into my coaching programs the decision to give ourselves these amazing, amazing, luscious retreats. And see, the thing is, when you are away together for a period of time, we were away together for 9 days. Process doesn't just happen when we're in workshop. Process happens. Gosh, I remember having a conversation with somebody at breakfast. He was about to walk out and I had a conversation with him and it catalyzed something for him. It happens when we're in the Mercedes minivan going from Split to Dubrovnik. A thought that might happen that we couldn't happen if we were back at home. Just being in that foreign country just opens our minds up to being able to see things that we couldn't see. Process also happens in our dreams and we debrief them the next morning. Process happens over conversations, over meals. It's a very magical experience. And again, it's something that it can't happen to the level that it does when you're in a one-on-one coaching conversation. It can't happen to the level that it does if you go away on retreat and it's not residential, nor is it somewhere that feels quite foreign and has required the level of decision and commitment that an overseas retreat does. So I absolutely love the architecture of a retreat that, is a good amount of time, like 9 days or 13 days, which can you all be? The other thing that I could see as a theme here, and I'm going to speak about me first of all, and then I can relate it to other people, is that I was pulled to facilitate this with Shari L. We had never run a retreat together before, but I was pulled to and I followed it. What an immaculate partnership we were. And we are. I didn't know what the magic was going to be, but I can see it now because we've facilitated it. And the magic is that my go-to is that I will go to my intuition, and I will go into the formless world. And Shari's default is to always go to our humanity, to be on the ground, to acknowledge our needs, to really speak to the human side of things. And of course, she then goes up into the formless world and into her intuition. And of course, I go down into the practical world. We are all of that. But because our defaults are the way that they are, it works really, really beautifully. One of the things that I really, really loved is that through the reflection of Shari, I got to see just how much I love to receive intuition whilst I'm on retreat for people, and how much I love when that intuition, I know that intuition wants to be applied whilst we are there together. Because often people can think, oh, when I go home, that's when I'll apply that intuition that came to Giselle or whoever or myself. But sometimes that intuition is so alive that it actually wants to be applied in the moment. And I saw that happening, and gosh, it tickles me. It really tickles me. I get really, really excited when I can see that intuition is applied, and that, how do I want to say it? That God has spoken, or love, the universe, life has spoken and been said yes to, and magic happens as a result of that. I mean, really, really, that tickles me. I get so excited by it. And I know that I'm going to be bringing that, and Michelle will also be bringing that to Kenya. In fact, I had a conversation with her and we were like, yeah, let's make that really, really conscious in Kenya. It's never enough for me. It's never, since 2013, it's never been enough for me for people just to have awareness. I've lived that world. I had lived that world, I should say, for a while. And I'd lived that world with lots of people, personal development junkies, you could say, who just, it's all about awareness, but there's no application, there's no integration. That's not enough. That's absolutely not enough for me. And if people only want to hang in the awareness world, not actually bring it to the ground and integrate it, they're not for me. And in fact, those people don't come to me, which is great. So that was very cool. And that happened for several people. And speaking of, the other thing that happened was, this year, the theme in my group in particular is the theme of overflow, more than. And what happened on this retreat was more than happened. There were things that we did not expect. Perhaps, for example, new models of service that have unfolded. They've unfolded for a couple of people on retreat, and they also unfolded for Shari and I that we had no idea were on the cards, and yet now can see how much sense that they make. So what was really cool about that was that strategy was born from having no strategy, but following the intuitive pull. I'll say that again. Strategy was born by having no strategy, but by following the intuitive pull. And then once we could see it, we could see actually that's really smart. For example, Shari and I have booked in, and Michelle and I have booked in 2 retreats next year. Kenya in May again, Kenya again in May, and Croatia again in September. We did not book them in thinking that people who would come to Croatia would then say, oh, I'm going to come to Kenya in May. But 4 people said that. How amazing is that? I mean, now I look at it and it's just so smart to have those 2 retreats booked in, but I never created for those reasons. So there was a lot of overflow, and it continues. I had a message from somebody this morning that wasn't on retreat, and it allowed me, it was like a breadcrumb, and it allowed me to, I guess, connect some dots up about a new offering that Shari and I have seen for someone on retreat. Now we're seeing actually it might even be for more than that person on retreat. It might actually be an offering that we love to facilitate. So it continues, and I am yet to catch up with all the people that came on retreat in Croatia, and I'm looking forward to that. And I know that there's going to be so much overflow that has unfolded and will unfold, and that as long as they continue to be committed to who they saw themselves and to their conviction in their leadership. I mean, actually, even me saying that doesn't make sense. As long as they are committed to their conviction, there's no commitment required when you're convicted. With the conviction that they have, momentum is the only consequence. And because I shared that we work with the structure of knowing that there is divine architecture to our lives, we don't even know. We don't have the capacity to even see what is going to unfold until we start getting those intuitive hits. And then until we start, like, for example, what happened with me this morning when I got a text message, until we start being able to kind of connect some dots and then start to see the bigger picture. That is so much fun. So much fun. There's a lot more that happened on retreat. They are the big ones, Very, very, very grateful for the people that were there, for Shari being my co-facilitator extraordinaire that I had so much joy with, and grateful for what is to come. So much knowing for what is to come. We have one spot left for Kenya. If you are called, have conviction around that calling. If circumstances come in the way of that pull, I would just say to you, notice that you are potentially more committed to your circumstances than you are to following the intuitive pull. And I would invite you to have conviction to following that pull. It is a life-changing decision, and I can promise you that. But you will only get to experience that by saying yes and being convicted in your yes. Sending you all so much love. Until the next time. Ciao, ciao. If you enjoyed this episode or previous episodes, I would so appreciate you sharing the love and letting your family, friends, and colleagues know about this podcast, because the only way that it's going to get out there is if we use word of mouth, the good old word of mouth. So I have my hands in appreciation for you, for those who have already been sharing the love. And should this part of the podcast inspire you to share amongst your network, I really appreciate you. Also, I've been saying that I am also returning to my first love, which is writing. So if you would like to receive me in your inbox every week, there is a link in the show notes where you'll be able to subscribe, and I look forward to writing to you. Have an incredible week. Thank you.